Cindy, how's it going today?
Fabulous. How about you? How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing great. Spring is here, although allergies are horrible, so my voice is even more raspier than it normally is. So where are you calling in from?
Today, in this moment, I happen to be in Naples, Florida, but
I
I live
love
in
it.
Minnesota most of the time, so I've jumped right into summer, which is fabulous.
I love Naples. It's just everything about it is amazing.
It is truly.
Yeah, we're lucky you. It's probably much nicer than the cold in Minnesota.
I left snow, and I'm hoping I'm not returning to snow. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yay. All right. So everybody has a story as to, how we got to where we are today. What is your story? How did you get to be doing what you're doing right now?
So my story is kind of a long and twisting road. If at the beginning of your career, at the beginning even of going to school, my degree is I have a Bachelor of Science in nursing. Someone would have told me where all the winding roads would have ended. I would not have believed him. But I started out as a nurse in cardiology and electrophysiology. I worked for medical device companies. I worked with regulatory agencies internationally. And the more my career grew, the less healthy I became.
Mhm.
And little by little, and the less healthy I became, the less happy I became. And I'm sure that's something that you've heard before. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and and so, long story short, I walked away from all of that to start to do something different, to return to working with people, with individuals, and helping them find real health after a diagnosis,
Okay.
and finding them a way to live their very best life after a diagnosis, which is what I had to do after numerous diagnoses, large and small. And I'm thrilled and excited to be one, working with clients again rather than patients, but two, to help people rediscover what their best life is, to rediscover that they can choose happiness, which is something that has appealed to me about your podcast, just that recognition that happiness is a choice.
Right. Exactly. So what was it about the diagnosis? And if you don't need to go into the details of that because it
Sure.
probably
So
doesn't matter so much. But what was it about being diagnosed with something that was probably scary, maybe a health challenge or whatever? What was it about that was the catalyst for pushing you forward?
So I found that each thing that came up in my health as I was kind of in denial about the whole process, and that my lifestyle was actually making me sick, was this habit of contingent happiness that I developed.
Mm.
So when the blood work comes back, then I'll be happy. When I get the biopsy results back, then I'll be happy. When my bowel heals, then I'll be happy. And there was all of these reasons to put off being happy for literally years, until one day I just decided I can't wait anymore, and that things actually were going pretty well. But having that focus, having that contingent happiness, kept me focused on the diagnosis, on the illness, on the waiting for another shoe to drop somewhere. And at one point, it felt like I was a spider waiting for more and more shoes to drop. Um, but it was very much this sense of, okay, you know what? I'm going to be okay. I'm. I don't want to play this waiting game anymore to be happy.
Nice. And I love that you said contingent happiness. I haven't heard it that way. It's another brilliant way to say, yes, us procrastinators, as humans, we do procrastinate. We do make our happiness contingent upon fill in the blank, like you were just saying. And it's kind of sad that, I think it's also kind of the way as humans we're wired. It's in our DNA that we're always trying to protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That, well, if it doesn't happen, if I'm not happy, then, it's this. We like to point the fingers and blame other people. So tell me about, I understand that you use like integrative coaching and different types of body work. So what types of body work do you do to help your clients?
So I have a physical practice in Minnesota where I see clients for body work, MAT, muscle activation techniques, and then Pilates and yoga for rehab, say post-op. I have a group of clientele who really feel much more comfortable seeing me as, in that nursing role as well as the rehab type role after they've had their diagnoses or their surgeries, their kind of things going on. But I take those same principles and I've incorporated them into a membership program for women who are coming out the other side of a diagnosis. So they've completed treatments, or they're in remission, or they're in a more constant sort of phase. And then I help them create their best life, month by month, topic by topic, in very bite-sized portions, to give them the power back so that they can choose happiness. They can create enough space in their life to actually realize it's out there and I can grab it.
I love that you said bite-sized, because that's really what it's about. So we can't tackle all of it at once.
No, it's overwhelming. When you receive a diagnosis, it kind of takes over your life. And in many cases, it takes over your identity. And we hear that in the language of the culture. I'm a breast cancer survivor, or I'm a 5-year survivor of colon cancer, or I'm a diabetic, or I'm this, or I'm that. And really, women, I think, especially lose their identity to a diagnosis. When they come out the other side, they think that they want their old life back. That will make them happy if things just get back to normal. But a diagnosis and that journey changes us so much that that old life doesn't fit anymore. And so what does the new one look like? How do we start reclaiming an identity, recreating it? How do we figure out who we are and choose happiness at the same time?
Yeah, because I'm grateful that I have never had any sort of diagnosis, although I've had all sorts of other life traumas, that were just as life altering. And you're right, your life will never be the same after you've gone through something.
But it's a growth moment.
Yeah. And I love that you're helping them see that they have the choice to make it even better than it was before, even though they think they may want their old life back, because when you're going through all that, you're like, I just want my life to be normal again, right?
Yes.
But do you really want that normal? Probably not.
Right. For a couple of reasons. One, it was, I believe we create everything that comes to us. We call in everything that comes to us. And if you were like me, living in a life that really was not serving you, you don't want to go back to that and to those choices. But then you say, now what? What does this look like? And so rebuilding, self-image, rebuilding a body image is a very big part of that. Our membership works with rebuilding sleep, which is often, it's such a fundamental piece, but it's often so disturbed when managing diagnosis or treatments and that kind of thing. So it's a sense of control, it's a sense of rebuilding, it's a sense of a new identity, and it's really exciting work to do.
Oh, completely. I love it. And I love that you like to speak about healing beyond the cure.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that. we just did, but
when
you go and talk about healing behind the cure, what does that look like? Are there steps involved, or like yeah?
Yes, so healing beyond the cure really identifies the two, or separates the two very much. So a cure is often something we look to others for. I look to the doctor, I look to chemo, I look to surgery, I look to all of these things to cure this disease. And even if we have the cure, we also need to heal from the whole experience. And that healing is a completely inside job, just like happiness. we need to really kind of incorporate that, integrate that experience into our life, and then decide how we want to move forward with that experience. Now, the other end of that spectrum is that we still have the choice to heal even if there's no cure. Even if we're facing a situation that there's no cure for the particular diagnosis we have, we can heal our lives and our experiences and our relationships in amazing ways that gives the life we have left grace and beauty.
I love that. I love that. That's really incredible because when I just know, like with my father, when he was diagnosed with cancer, he was given 3 months to live. Mm-hmm. And it changes things so much for everybody. And for that individual who's going through it, they're the ones that really need that, what's next.
Mm-hmm. What do I want to do with this time that's left?
Yeah.
I can choose to be angry, and of course that would be normal. I could choose to deny it. I can choose to fight. I can choose to alienate everyone, or I can choose to accept that this is my role with grace and spend my remaining time sharing that sense of grace and that experience. I can choose dignity. I can choose happiness. I have all of those choices. And sometimes it's just helping people recognize that they have those choices. And then, of course, all of the people around them, how to adjust to that,
Well, yeah, because it's always a choice. And you say your diagnosis does not have to be your destiny.
No, we absolutely have a choice. It doesn't have to be your identity. It doesn't have to be the only thing about you. You don't have to assume that role. And I think there's a lot of mechanisms in society, especially in our culture here, that you find comfort in that role. I'm probably one of the more controversial voices when it comes to support groups, because support groups really are intended to be a bridge through, not a final destination. And I end up working with so many women who've been locked in that journey. The support group becomes the destination because it's a commonality. It's something that you can talk about. It's something you can identify with, but it just reinforces that identity. So, support groups are meant to be a bridge across, not a destination. And I think that on a massive scale is what we in the States, as well as much of the world, has been going through the last couple of years. This identity of the virus and everything that surrounds it, and making that such a part of who we are in our life for many people, when really
Right.
It's something that you move through rather than hang on to.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know many people who have been stuck in a support group for over 20, sometimes 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and they never move beyond it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a big challenge because there's so much beyond it. And again, it was never the intent of these groups, but we all cling to what's comfortable. So I try to reach out to women and let them know through opportunities like this, which I greatly appreciate, that there is so much beyond it, and figuring out who you get to be in this next stage is wonderful. And you can do it with support and guidance, and one step at a time.
Absolutely. And I do want to just throw in, while your work works with, thankfully so, works with women and helping them with their diagnosis, everything that you're talking about and everything that you're working with your clients, you can apply to any aspect of your life.
Yes.
Right?
It is. It's much easier for people to identify a particular diagnosis or identify a particular struggle. But as you said, with anything that comes up, you choose. Do I want to come out the other side stronger? Do I want to learn from this? Or do I want to carry the fear because I don't know how to move on from it?
Yeah. Well, part of my big mission with my Happiness Solved is I don't want people to wait until they have the diagnosis or until they have the tragedy or they hit rock bottom, because life is too short. So don't wait until you get that. Like, start now. Start shifting that mindset now, because maybe you can, there's a mind, body, spirit thing going on here. Maybe you can just make shifts before you don't get a diagnosis.
There's so much more in our control than people realize.
Yeah.
I think even like you talk about, when I just get the next promotion, when it's just the next salary level, I'll be happy. When it's just, when the kids get a little bit older, when this happens, when that happens. And so much is lost within that waiting time. So much opportunity and so much of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I get it. I don't want anybody to think, we're making anybody wrong for the way that they're living, because it's not about that. It's about, okay, today's the day. We're going to make that shift, because I know for me, I stayed in a marriage with my ex-husband for 10 years longer than I really should have. It was, lots of ups and downs. But, in that time, I felt it was best, and I was able to be home with my son and raise him. Did I waste it? No. Could things have been a lot different? Absolutely. But I made the decision when I made it, and that's that. So I'm just throwing that out there to let people know, like, it's okay if you haven't made that choice. It's perfectly all right. It's just, at some point you need to say, okay, today's the day. The time is now to start making those changes.
And part of what you talk about is that healing, that acceptance. Could I have gone earlier? I had the experiences that I had. We were in the situation that we were. There was good, there were bad. That understanding and that healing that comes with it, because very often, retrospectively, when it comes to managing illness, there's this sense of, oh, I should have done this, or I should have never gotten those treatments, or I should have gotten a second opinion, or I should have, all of those kind of things come up. You are where you are in your journey. And, I welcome anyone to come for support on what's the next step. Because, it's also, I'm sure, easy for your listeners to say, okay, here's this woman who's, sitting in Naples on vacation. Of course, it's easy for her to say, just make a different choice. But the number of choices that I had to make to actually make it here this week, the number of things you have to put in place, and it was still a choice. What I had to do to get here was very much worth it. Yeah. And I think that's where, and sometimes if you're out of that practice, if you, I'm sure the first time that you thought about changing your living arrangement, it was like scary, and how do I start, and what is it going to look like, and all of those things. And that's where it's great if you have someone you can reach out and say, okay, here I am, treatments are done, I thought everything was going to be good, now what?
Right.
And there are people out there like you, like me, that will help, that will listen, that offer solutions.
Right. That's right. So where can people find you, Cyndi?
CyndiLynne.com.
Perfect.
Is probably the best place. There's I have a great communication guide for anybody who's going through anything in their personal life, whether it's a diagnosis, it's written for that, but if your job situation changed, it's how to share your story and maintain your privacy. So I welcome people to grab that free ebook at CyndiLynne.com and then reach out.
I love that. That's really great. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off?
No, I think I truly appreciate your time, and I love the work that you're doing, and I love the idea of providing solutions and choices, and of course that all creates new perspectives. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you today.